Hi, it's Jessica. This is Jessica's Quiet Stories, short, gentle moments from real life. Today's story is about a Wednesday when I almost quit. Not just my job, but the idea that I could keep going. If you've ever felt like that, this one is for you. It was a gray Wednesday with patient rain, the kind of morning that smells like wet sidewalks and old coffee, and makes the city look like it's wearing a soft sweater. I stood at the bus stop with my scarf pulled up to my chin and my phone in my pocket, pretending it wasn't there. A bus sighed up to the curb, doors folding open like a deep breath, and I climbed aboard. The bus was a moving room with foggy windows. Someone had wiped a circle on the glass with a sleeve, so there was a small, perfect porthole to the outside. I sat under it and watched the world slide by in muted colors. Umbrella tops, traffic lights, people leaning toward the day like it might whisper a secret if they got close enough. I rested my forehead against the cool window and told myself a sentence I didn't entirely believe. Maybe it's time to quit. The words felt heavy, like a stone you hold too long in your hand and it shapes to your fingers. For 3 weeks, I'd been rewriting the same document for work. It was supposed to be simple. Clear recommendations, 1 page per section, short sentences. Instead, it became a hallway full of doors I kept opening and closing, never sure which room was mine. I worked late, woke early, arranged my face into a brave shape for calls. The work wasn't wrong. It was just too loud in my head. Every thought arrived with a marching band. Behind me, a man stood near the exit holding a paper bag. One of those thin, friendly bags that bakery boxes live in. The bottom of it had turned darker where rain had kissed it. Every few seconds, he checked it, lifting the edges like he was making sure it was still breathing. The bus turned, the bag folded a little, and he whispered, "Hang in there." It was unclear if he meant the pastry, or himself, or all of us. I smiled into my scarf. The bus hissed again. The door opened, and he stepped off carefully, hands around the bag as if it contained something fragile and delicious, which it probably did. I watched him cross the street, guarding the sweetness. I thought about what I'd been carrying, and how I'd been carrying it. My project wasn't a bakery cake, but it was still something I had made with time and care. Lately, I'd been tossing it around, calling it names, shoving it into corners. No wonder I wanted to quit. Who can run while juggling something delicate? At the next stop, a kid got on wearing a blue jacket and a backpack that looked like it belonged to a mountain climber. He sat across from me and pulled out a battered notebook. On the first page, he had written 2 words in block letters: "Keep going." He traced the letters with a finger, not like a prayer, but like a plan, and turned the page to a math problem. He tried it. He got it wrong. He frowned, chewed on the end of his pencil, and tried again. Slower. He didn't throw the notebook away. He didn't make a speech about how he'd never be good at math. He breathed and tried again. The bus crossed a bridge, water below like crumpled foil, and the kid kept writing the small future of his answer. I pressed my hand to the cool window. Maybe the real problem wasn't the project. Maybe it was the story I told myself about it. That if it didn't come quickly and cleanly, something was wrong with me. The kid across from me was not performing. He was practicing. The man with the paper bag was not hurrying. He was protecting. I was the only one sprinting in a space designed for walking. When I got off at my stop, the rain had softened into a polite mist that made everything shiny. Sidewalk, leaves, expectations. I walked to the office with slower steps than usual, like I was carrying a cup filled to the brim. I still wanted to quit. That part didn't vanish. but the wanting felt less like a cliff and more like a door I didn't have to open yet. Inside, the office smelled like printer ink and citrus hand soap. I took off my coat and did something I hadn't tried in days. I made tea and didn't check my phone while the water boiled. 30 seconds of nothing at all. The kettle hummed, the mug warmed my hands. I told the day, quietly, I will keep what matters and put down what doesn't. I reopened the document that had been fighting me. The cursor blinked like a small heartbeat. I read the first paragraph, the one I'd been showing off to myself. It was smart, I guess. It used words that wore shiny shoes, but it didn't say anything the reader needed. It was a guest at the party who talked too loudly. I selected the paragraph and pressed delete. The room got quieter. Then I cut the project in half. Half today, half tomorrow. I moved the second half into a new file and labeled it, Good Work for Future Me. My shoulders came down a centimeter. I wrote one simple sentence that actually belonged, Here is the part that matters most. I placed it at the top like a small banner, not shouting, just being true. At 10:12, a meeting began where people said, circle back, and quick win and leverage. I stayed calm. I answered questions with 10 words instead of 50. I wrote, keep the size of today on a sticky note and parked it at the bottom of my screen where only I could see. I spoke slowly enough to think. Around noon, my friend Maya pinged me. Lunch? I said yes, because lately I had been saying no, and no had turned my brain into a hallway with no windows. We walked to a small place that served soup in bowls with tiny chips around the rim. We shared a table with a plant that was trying very hard to be alive. Maya talked about her sister's new baby. I said "aw" in precisely 15 different ways. When I asked how she was, she shrugged in a shape that meant mostly fine. And we both laughed. At one point, my phone lit up with an email from a client whose subject line started with urgent. I turned the phone face down and let the email be a piece of paper on another table in another room in another town. I took a slow spoonful of soup and noticed it tasted like actual vegetables, which I had not appreciated in years. Across the room, a barista made something with a long hiss and a small clatter. Somebody said, "Thank you," like they meant it. I remembered the man with the paper bag. I decided to carry my afternoon like that. Back in the office, I wrote the message I'd been avoiding. Hi. Revise scope attached so we can deliver the part that matters most today. Updated draft by 4 p.m. Thanks for your patience. I read it twice. It was not a hero message. It was a neighbor message. Realistic. Kind. I sent it, then stood up and stretched my arms until my shoulders made two small pops like polite applause. At 2:06, a real problem arrived. The data table in my document didn't match the latest source. Two numbers had shifted by a decimal. It wasn't dramatic. No alarms, no flames. But it meant I had to revise my analysis and the chart I'd drawn. The old me from last week would have done one of two things: panic or pretend. Panic, rush, sweat, choose speed over accuracy. Pretend, call it close enough, and hope nobody noticed. The Wednesday me, gray sky me, bus window me, tried something different. I made tea again. Then I fixed it slowly. I opened the new source, checked the assumptions, redid the math out loud like a quiet tutor. 7.2 becomes 7.5 because the sample grew. That affects the ratio here by about 4%. I narrated the steps for my nervous system, not for anyone else. It kept my hands steady. The new chart was cleaner anyway, less like a fireworks show and more like a steady path you could walk without tripping. At 3:10, my manager knocked on the frame of my door, which has no door, just possibility. "How's it going?" he asked. His voice was the sound of someone who has already seen 5 fires today and would prefer no more. I showed him the simple sentence at the top, the part that matters most, and the clean chart. He nodded once, a small approval that didn't need a parade. "Looks good," he said, which from him is like thunderous applause. "Send it when you're ready." At 3:58, the document finally felt like a room you could walk around in. No extra chairs to bump into. A window where light knew how to enter. A door that actually opened. I sent it to the client with quiet hands and no heroic subject line. Then I stood up and did the strange, brave thing of closing my laptop for 2 minutes and doing nothing. I watched a delivery bike rider stop at the curb, check the address on a bag, then lift it with 2 hands like a small treasure. I thought of the man with the paper bag again. Some days, the bravest thing is careful hands. The reply arrived at 4:22. "Thanks, Jessica. This is clear and helpful. Let's proceed." Not fireworks. Not a trophy. Just the particular relief of work that does what it needs to do. I exhaled an old breath I didn't realize I'd been holding since Monday. At 5:07, earlier than usual, I packed my bag without the frantic, guilty choreography of a person sneaking out of their own life. I put my notebook in, then the pen, then the headphones. I zipped the bag slowly like a person in a movie who knows the next scene won't chase them. I said goodnight to Maya. She held up the plant and asked, "Do you think it's going to make it?" I said, "Yes," and meant me too. On the bus home, the seat was warm from whoever had just left. The windows were less foggy now. The porthole had turned into a full view. The city was in that in-between light where everything is the color of soft metals, tin roofs, brass handrails, the silver hair of a man reading a paperback. A woman got on with a toddler who had opinions about gravity. He threw his stuffed giraffe onto the floor, then looked personally betrayed that the giraffe wasn't still in his hands. The woman picked it up, dusted it off, and handed it back without a lecture. The child hugged the giraffe with the force of a small storm. I realized I had been throwing my own giraffe all week, dropping the same hope and blaming gravity. Maybe the correct response was not a speech to myself. Maybe it was a simple, gentle pickup. We passed the bakery where the paper bag man might have come from. In the window was a cake with a ribbon of chocolate on top, like handwriting in a language I don't speak yet but want to. 2 people inside pointed at it and smiled a future smile. There are so many quiet parties happening all the time. Celebrations without balloons, just a good cake and someone who knows how to carry it. The bus turned. I watched the river go dark and then lighter again as streetlights woke up one by one. That was when the idea showed up with its shoes off, quiet enough that I almost missed it. I didn't quit. I quit the way I was carrying this. At home, I put my keys in the bowl by the door, the one with the crack that looks like a small river. I changed into a sweater that had known me long enough to be honest. I lit a candle that smelled like something between orange and memory. I didn't open my laptop. I didn't award myself more work because I felt calmer. I made a sandwich and ate it on the floor, which is a thing I do when I want my day to touch the ground. After dinner, I called my dad. I told him about the plant that might make it and the kid with the keep-going notebook and the cake I didn't buy but still somehow tasted with my eyes. I described the moment the chart finally made sense. "Sounds like you had a day," he said, which is his way of saying, "I'm proud of you for trying." He didn't ask if I had done everything. He asked if I had done something honest. Later, as the apartment settled into its evening sounds, I wrote down 3 sentences in my own notebook, in my own block letters that look like they're wearing small hats. Keep carrying gently. Practice, not performance. Size today like today. I closed the notebook and put it under the candle like it was a blessing. Before bed, I stood by the window and watched the street. A cyclist in a yellow jacket flashed past like a thought you almost catch. A neighbor locked their door and tested it twice. Somewhere a dog shook itself into a new mood. I said goodnight to the city, which did not hear me and felt okay about that. In the morning, when the alarm spoke in its usual persuasive voice, I woke up without the weight that had been sitting on my chest for weeks. The project was still the project. The world was still the world. But I had a new grip. I brewed coffee slowly enough to notice the steam write a small poem I couldn't read. I thought of the paper bag man and hoped his cake had reached its destination in one piece. I hoped the kid's math problem had eventually made friends with his pencil. I put on my shoes and told the day, I will keep what matters and put down what doesn't. 1. Protect what you carry. Move it carefully. Speak to it kindly. Work can feel the way you hold it. 2. Practice, don't perform. Speed follows clarity. Today is for accuracy and care. 3. Right-size the day. Let today be today. Half now, half tomorrow still finishes the bridge. 4. Fix slowly. Panic and pretending both break trust. Slow fixes build it. 5. Build rooms you can walk around in. Documents, days, decisions. Remove the extra chairs. Repeat slowly, like friendly promises. I'm not quitting. I'm adjusting. I can carry this more gently. I'm practicing, not performing. Half today is still progress. I will keep going, kindly. Useful expressions. Keep going, continue, don't stop. Right-size the day. Match plan to real energy, cheer time. Panic or pretend. Too common but unhelpful habits. Choose slow fixes instead. Practice versus performance. Focus on process, not the show. This was Jessica's Quiet Stories, the day I almost quit. If this helped, share it with someone who's carrying too much too quickly. Next time, a note on yellow paper. Until then, protect what you carry.